Greetings Exile and welcome to yet another build guide. Do we want to play the best single build I have yet played in this game, which also was my starter in Metamorph League? Do you like full screen AoE while still killing bosses within 2 seconds and being literally unkillable in maps? Are you interested in a build that simply does everything and has huge gear and endgame scaling? Then the Reave Blade Flurry champion with Impale might just be the build you've always been looking for. What I really want to point out in the beginning is that all footage you can see is at Awakening level 8 and on tier 14 plus maps. During the past 1.5 years I played 4 different variations of this build, as Ascendant, Berserker, Slayer and Gladiator, Pure Fizz, Pure Cold, Eternity Shroud or full AoE. By the Metamorph League, the pure physical Impale champion was the variation of my choice. And oh my gosh, this build is powerful while also being off meta, meaning it is rather cheap to gear. I am faster in clearing maps, killing bosses, and even more tanky than my friends that literally all play summoners. You can have full screen AoE with Reave in combination with Reave. And by the way, the 21-23 Reave gem cost me 5 chaos. Blade Flurry is here for single target, Impale mails everything within a second or two. I usually don't care about the mods on the Metamorphs because they can't do anything dangerous anyways, even when fully juiced T16 Awakening 8 maps. The champion Ascendancy provides enormous damage boosts as well as enough defense, which makes you literally unkillable in maps if you're not face tanking every single mechanic. This build tremendously scales with gear. However, I was clearing and killing tier 16 Awakening 3 maps and Conquerors with 5 chaos weapons and a tabula, which at that point was my most expensive item. I've been farming and carrying multiple Awakeners and Conquerors on level 8, Ubalder, Shaper, Elder, Mastermind, Ubatsiri, got to level 97 and completed everything that's possible on the current Atlas. I don't like running deep delve, so I never tried how deep this build can go, but 83 is a breeze. I couldn't make out obvious weaknesses after playing the build for about 3 weeks. Maybe just that it's melee, and if you want to do maximum damage on Blade Flurry, you really need to know how to play that skill. The gear I'm wearing in the footage is only about 30 exalted, so nothing too special after 3 weeks. The general playstyle itself is straightforward. In maps, you use Reave, get Vial Source for your Vial Reave, and once Vial Reave is up, use it to close enemies and get up to 8 Reave stacks. As long as you keep attacking targets, you won't lose these 8 stacks, even when using the normal version of Reave. On tough enemies, you have 3 stages to further increase your damage, depending on the situation. In maps, once you reach the boss, you can place down your Warbanner, your Ancestral War Chief, and your Stormbrand for cursing. Use your Vial Molten Shell once you find yourself in a dangerous situation. I, for example, usually use it right before the Metamorph spawned or when you spawn multiple Beyond bosses. Once you find yourself fighting a big boss, swap from Reave to Blade Flurry. With Blade Flurry, you want to try to get 6 stacks and then immediately release for maximum DPS. Once you get used to it, you will have a feeling for how long you need to channel for max stacks with how much attack speed you have. You might also notice in the footage and during the Cyrus fight at the end of the video that I'm also definitely not playing it perfectly, but still kill everything extremely fast. Before you reach endgame and the big bosses, you have to level up your character first. This is not that easy on that build because I always have problems leveling up attack characters, but you can literally use any melee skill that works with swords and you'll be fine. Reave is available at level 12, Blade Flurry at 28. Leveling progression trees can be found within the PoE provided in the video description. Just select them from the bottom left drop down menu. In the Bandit quest, I suggest you help Alira. Resistance is mana regen, especially while leveling, feel really good, and since the build scales with crit multi is also welcome. Later on, with good gear that easily covers all your resistances, you should go for 2 passive points instead. For the most part, I actually played with the 2 passive points until recently when I changed my gloves. But I'll go over the gear in a moment. As Ascendancy Progession, I have an unstoppable hero first. This makes you extremely tanky while also protecting you from being stunned while you have Fortify, which is 100% up. Go for Master of Metal next. Huge damage boost and another 1k armor. Conqueror and Worthy Foe last. Conqueror grants a lot of defense and Worthy Foe is a big damage boost, as well as making it unnecessary to go for accuracy. Let's go over the gear now. I've been using a tabula and was able to clear all content, but I really suggest getting a lore weave. Focus on 78% resistances, and then life, fist to attacks and crit. Even in the later stages of the game I preferred the lore weave over a 30 exalted crafted Hunter Astral Plate, because it offers a lot of different stats. As weapons, at first I used a Dreadbeak and Ichimonji with good DPS and 30% quality corrupted. Ichimonji also helps with mana reservation until you can afford or have leveled an Enlightened gem. After that, go for high physical DPS foils, preferably with crit, which mine do not even have, so I could vastly improve my damage from weapons if I had crit on both of them. I crafted my weapons with Jacked Fossils on a 83+ Warlord dual foil. Recently, I changed my gloves from a rare pair to unique pairs. In maps, I use Hemophilia, preferably with vulnerability on hit corruption. They grant you undeath explosions to improve your clear speed by a bit, but you're fine without them as well. On big bosses, for me only Awakener, Shaper and Elder and stuff like that, change those to Offering to the Serpent. Those grant a lot of damage and overleech, which is huge in every single boss fight you can imagine. As far as rare gear goes, your first priority should be to reach the 78% resistance cap on every elemental resistance when using lore weave, as well as getting all base stats like intelligence and dexterity to the necessary amount. After that, get as much life as possible. Don't forget to get movement speed and maybe even onslaught on your boots. Also, if you can, get armor and chaos resistance. Armor is our secondary defense after life in this build. If you want more damage, get attack speed and fist to attacks on ring or crit multi and fist to attacks on your amulet. You also need minus mana cost to channeling skills on 2 of your jewelry pieces and minus mana cost to non-channeling skills on the other piece. Due to high attack speed, these rolls really make a difference. Important, you really want onslaught somewhere, so if you don't get it from your boots or flasks, try to get it on an abyss jewel. The best stats on your other jewels are life or critical strike multiplier, depending if you want offense or defense. Other viable options are shown on the screen right here. Let's go over the flasks. An instant life flask is never a bad idea. Huge damage boost comes from a diamond flask, just like in every crit build. Other damage flasks are a lion's roar or a sulfur flask. If you got a lot of currency, take a bottled faith, one of the strongest flasks in the game, especially as a crit character. As last flask, take the silver flask for bossing, and if you do not have a source of onslaught during mapping, also take it for maps. Otherwise, I like playing with the jade flask for even more defense. Don't forget bleed, freeze and curse immunity on your flasks for mapping. Here are some examples of anointments I suggest. I was actually forced into using one that grants resistances because, as I mentioned, I just swapped from resistance gloves to the unique ones. Feel free to use any other anointment depending on your needs. As always, there are 2 categories, offense and defense, at 3 different price points. I recommend Blade Dancer though, because it's extremely cheap but already very strong. Let's go over all the skills now. Your chest colors should be 2 red, 2 green, 2 blue to fit in your Blade Flurry, which you will use for bossing. Don't bother using the setup in maps. Reave deals enough damage for anything in there. I suggest you get white sockets on your chest to be able to swap around freely between your 2 setups. However, without white sockets, instead of brutality in here, take increased critical strikes for Reave. If you want more area of effect, you can also swap in pulverize instead of brutality. If you want even more, then also swap in increased area of effect instead of energy leech. I tried to build with both of them, but I felt like you do not need to offscreen enemies because on Awakening 8 with a bunch of bad mods, you want more damage instead of area of effect. But that's up to you and how you feel comfortable. Link your mana heavy auras like Pride, Herald of Purity and Blood and Sand with an Enlighten. I usually keep playing in Bloodstance, but if you want more AoE instead of damage, select Sandstance. You probably also noticed the red explosions during mapping. That's because I've been using Herald of Ash with the Automaton MTX instead of Herald of Purity. This literally decreases my damage by about 10%, but I did it nonetheless because of the looks. I do not suggest if you really want to deal maximum damage. Your Warbanner and level 1 precision can be socketed wherever you still got an open socket. They don't have to be linked with anything. As movement ability, take Leap Slam linked with faster attacks. A caster damage taken with Molten Shell and Summon Lightning Golem during mapping helps with damage and survivability. On bosses, remove the cast when damage taken support, so you will be able to self-cast your Molten Shell in dangerous situations. The Vaal Ancestral War Chief or normal Ancestral War Chief grants a huge damage boost to you while also dealing a lot of damage itself while active. The last link is a Stormbrand with Curse on Hit, Assassin's Mark. Use it on bosses and whenever you need additional damage. Make sure to cast Blood Rage in the beginning of every map and during boss fights to keep up that strong attack speed buff. The gem can be socketed anywhere and doesn't have to be linked to anything. I've been talking about both mapping and bossing setups already, but once again, the short version. During maps, use the Reave setup. Socket in area of effect support gems if you feel like you don't need the maximum DPS or change from Blood to Sand Stance. Use your Vaal Ancestral War Chief, Stormbrand, Blood Stance and the War Banner activation against map bosses, depending on how much damage you want there. While bossing, change your main link from Reave to the Blade Flurry setup. Stay in Blood Stance and try to keep up your Blood Rage, Ancestral War Chief and Stormbrand. Cast your Molten Shell in dangerous situations and focus on channeling up to 6 stacks and then release Blade Flurry. Those might be a lot of buttons for some players, but once you get used to it, the damage is insane. If you want to see the Awakener fight on Awakening level 8 with the build, watch the video until the end. And now, last, Pantheon. During Metamorph League, I used Arakali and Shakari for everything since chaos damage was literally the only thing that killed me in maps. If you play the build in a non-chaos damage heavy league, then take Lunaris for mapping and Solaris for bossing. As minor, take Tukohama.
Glad you made it back.
Did you really think this would work?
Cirrus, please, we want to help you. Don't do anything hasty.
Destroying you is as easy as flicking a pest.
No!
Sana!
Kirak!
How boring and small.
You want the Atlas? Take it. It's yours. But Oriath, I will burn to the ground.
Perhaps the suffering of my fellow citizens will finally stir something.
Rain of stars!
What's this? A real challenge? You've finally caught my attention.
My spirit is spent.
Die.
Watch beauty crumble! Be utterly annihilated! Obliteration!
The others found strength in their projections. They became reliant on them. I am not so foolish. Die.
Beyond, there is only horror.
Be silent.
This city is nothing!
Is life really interesting enough?
This world is doomed!
Die.
Why run? What's the point? exist.
On the edge of death, my heart races. I am alive.
My spirit is spent.
Everlasting fire.
Feel the thrill of
The void.
I felt something.
If you liked this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for new and updated content. If however you dislike this video, then please tell me why. I really care about improving. Questions? You can ask down in the comments or on my Twitch stream. I'm not on the schedule, but you can ask me any questions there when I'm live. Link is down in the video description. I also have a lot of guides on my channel, not only build guides but also knowledge guides, so make sure to check them out as well. I hope you're having a great day. Thank you very much for watching. I am Jay and I'm out.